All right, I'm delighted to be joined by Knockmore's Kevin McLoughlin ahead of the AIB GAA Connacht Senior Football Championship Final, which takes place in Ballina this Sunday, 1:30 throw-in. It'll see the Mayo champions Knockmore take on Padraig Pearse's of Roscommon. Knockmore hoping to land their first provincial title since 1996. Padraig Pearse is going for their first ever provincial crown. The game live on TG Cahir Sunday. This year's AIB Club Championship celebrate hashtag the toughest players in Gaelic games, those who are not defined by what they have won, but by how they persevere no matter what. Nice to talk to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Nathan, for having me.
Defined by what you have won, but by how they persevere. It might be relevant when it comes to your inter-county career, but thankfully for your club career over the past couple of seasons, it's not been the case with Knockmore.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that all right. Now, having said that, obviously we've won 2 in a row in Knockmore. It could have easily been the same story 2 years ago. But look, we've had 2 good campaigns at Knockmore so far, and just looking forward to the game at the weekend now at this stage.
Yeah, it could easily have been, because Knockmore lost, what was it, 5 finals since the last time they had won a county title. Like it reminds me of talking to David Brady and Liam McHale at opposite ends around Ballina, and having gone through similar heartbreak with Mayo. After one of them having gone through similar heartbreak with Ballina as well, but then finally getting that All-Ireland title meant so much to them. For you, having had that heartbreak with Mayo, which is obviously the very public side of it, but also like tough days, losing a couple of county finals in there as well. How much of a relief was it last year to get that county title?
Yeah, as you said, you have the nail on the head there. It was probably, obviously there was the euphoria of actually winning the game, but in the aftermath, it was definitely a relief. I know for maybe some of the younger guys, they hadn't had that struggle, we'll say. You know, I've been around the block for Knockmore for a good number of years, along with a lot of other lads in the team. So winning that final against Bravely, like, it was amazing. Like, it was just unbelievable. I said euphoria, but overall relief, you know. And to be honest, even going on and winning it this year again was just unbelievable again, just to show, I suppose, that we are a really solid team. There was probably a little bit of an asterisk around that 2020 because of the year that was in it. You know, maybe they won it because of the year that was in it, that maybe they caught teams in the hop, but it was really, there was a great satisfaction this year in particular, going win it again, you know.
That line about maybe there was an asterisk, maybe they caught teams on the hop, that sounds like something that was said in the Knockmore dressing room at the start of the year to make sure there was no slacking, that you were back for back-to-back.
Well, look, it wasn't necessarily mentioned, but we were aware of it. We were aware that it was been said. You know, it was said that, you know, Knockmore, they're a good team, but, you know, how good are they really? You know,
why do you think that was? That there wasn't big crowds at matches, that maybe there was less pressure on the games because a lot of them were behind closed doors?
Yeah, I'd say that was a big part of it. I would say, yeah, definitely.
So how different was this year? And I know, listen, we're unfortunately a year on, we're still in a similar scenario COVID-wise. In terms of being able to celebrate the county title this year, was it a bit more open? Were you able to have a few more people around? How did that all work out? Yeah,
look, we did celebrate it. We went back to the club community centre, where we just had a bit of a meal, and the club bar was open, so a few guys had a few beers there and all that. But overall, it was relatively low key. Obviously, just because the times that are in it, you know, it didn't really get out of hand, I don't think, anyways. So yeah, it was just, there's a lot to be said for the waking up the following day and knowing you've done it. You know, that's where the real satisfaction comes in.
Yeah, weird stat is that of the last 6 county titles that Knockmore have won, 5 of them have come in years that Mayo have lost All-Ireland finals. There's clearly no sulking after All-Ireland finals allowed around Knockmore.
I didn't know that stat. That's amazing. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any real correlation between the two?
Right.
It's an interesting stat all the same.
Yeah, the Knockmore manager, Ray Dempsey, was a great player in his own right, and throughout your career, it seems, has been a huge influence. Was, you know, in charge of underage teams as you were coming through, and has been a massive figure around Knockmore. What's he like to work with?
Ray is such a passionate Knockmore man. As you've kind of mentioned there, I've been with him at different stages throughout my career. Underage in Knockmore, he was over a minor team. an under 20 team. But obviously, he took over the minors as well at different stages. So like I know Ray very well. He's just a true Knockmore man. He loves his football. He's obsessed with his football. In a good way. Like he knows a lot about the game. He doesn't talk any nonsense. He's a deep thinker of the game. As a student of the game, if you want to call it, he's always trying to learn. And I suppose that does rub off on us. He's trying to make us, I suppose, learners on the pitch, learners on the training ground, trying to make us better players. And he's very passionate about player-driven setups. He wants us to be driving it. Definitely as senior players, he wants us driving it on the pitch, whether that be in training or in games,
GAA is such a unique sport in terms of the difference between an inter-county setup and a club setup. And like you talk about him being a student of the game, and you think of the inter-county manager you've worked with, probably four of them at this stage, from John O'Mahony, James Horan, Stephen Rochford, Noel Kennelly, Pat Holmes. And I guess for them being students of the games at inter-county level, they can put huge pressure on the inter-county players because it's at such an elite level. Is it a very different thing for a club manager as to what they can expect? Because I guess there's a bigger difference between player number 1 and player number 30 on a club panel, and also the time the players can commit. Is it a harder thing, do you think, for those sort of coaches to get their message across at a club level?
Yeah, it probably is. And I think you've kind of mentioned it there. Like, I suppose there's varying levels in any club team, but I suppose as a manager, you need to play to your strengths and maybe learn how to play with those players, how to put them into a system that's going to work. Like on any given team of a club team, you'll have for your 15 players, we might have 6 guys who are exceptional defenders. You might have 8 good kick passers, and I suppose as a manager, as the coaching team, you need to try and figure out what's your best method to put out a good team to win games, and I think in fairness to Ray and the team, they've been doing that pretty good recently anyways.
Do you feel a pressure when you go back to Knockmore to be the leader, the inter-county player coming back? Have you changed your role within the team over the years?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't find be pressurized anymore. And maybe when I was younger, particularly when I was on the county team as a 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, I was probably expecting a lot of myself, and a lot of people were expecting a lot of me. But I think going back now, at this stage of my career, I'm probably a bit more relaxed about it. I suppose as a more senior player, I try to, obviously I know I have to play my own game, but I try as best I can to speak to other guys around me, try and get them thinking the way I'm thinking, or maybe try and help them improve how they play. But look, it's a game where we have to adapt, and look, I enjoy going back.
Knockmore is such a rich heritage, both around Mayo, but also around the All-Ireland series as well. Won the provincial title 3 times, got to the All-Ireland final in 97, came up against the Crossmaglen side that were just starting out on the road to become maybe the greatest club side we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like that Roscommon team with Ray Dempsey, like with Kevin O'Neill, that Knockmore team with Kevin O'Neill and Ray Dempsey. Were you at that game? Do you remember it?
I was at it, but I don't really remember a lot of it now. I was probably a bit young at the time. I think it was like 7 or 8. I was at it. I was probably watching bits of it, but I don't remember a huge amount about it. I remember we lost, right, but that's about the height of it. But I would have been well aware of, even the years afterwards, of who the mainstays on that team were. Because a lot of them guys played a couple of more years after that. They didn't hang up their boots there and then. They played a few more years, and I really looked up to them as I got that little bit older, and I suppose I got more involved in the club. Did you
ever play with Kevin O'Neill?
I did, yeah. We played we got to a county final in 2009 when he came back from Nafina. Lost narrowly to Charlestown on the day. We were probably unfortunate. We had a couple injuries between the semi-final and final in Aidan Kilcoyne and Damien Munley. But in fairness to Charlestown, that was their 3rd final in a row. So that was the one they got over the line with. So they were probably due one, to be fair now. So yeah.
O'Neill was like people in Mayo, we obviously talk about Kieran MacDonald time as the special one, but Kevin O'Neill wasn't far behind.
yeah, he was an exceptional player. You know, even at that stage where you could say maybe his running distances, if the GPS on him, I don't know how much distance he would have covered, but he was such a clever footballer, and he knew where the posts were. And the year he came back, I really think brought on a lot of players, even years afterwards, like the professionalism he brought to it, and even his thinking around the game, preparation for the game. Yeah, he was something else.
Yeah, smart guy. We've been talking to a lot of players over the last few weeks who've been winning county titles, and you can almost get the sense from talking to them as to whether that's it when they won the county title, or whether that desire is there to go on and win provincial and try and contest for an All-Ireland title. And it depends on the club. For some clubs, winning a county title is everything. Could be the first time in 80, 90 years that they've won a county title. For Knockmore, obviously, winning county titles is hugely important, particularly after losing 5 in a row. But with that history of winning Connacht, of getting to All-Ireland finals, is it always in the back of your mind that, yeah, we want to win Mayo, but actually we feel as a club that the history is there, that we can do a whole lot more?
Well, I suppose maybe over the last 10 years, I suppose the Connachts were never something we thought about, because at the end of the day, you need to get out of Mayo first before you even consider it. Maybe this year was a little bit different, that after not being able to contest the 2020s Connacht, probably this year there was a bit more of a desire to try and get out of Mayo, to go on and make a stab at it, you know, try and put yourself up against the best in Connacht, you know. So yeah, I think this year in particular, it was somewhat in the back of our mind, but as I said, when you're in Mayo, you know, you can't think that way really. You know, you need to take it one game at a time. You know, there's a lot of good club teams in Mayo, you know.
Yeah, Sunday's game should be an absolute cracker. Padraig Pearse is looking exceptional side, backbone by the Daly brothers, who are probably tough as anybody in the game, as I'm sure you know from going up against Roscommon. Are we allowed to say it's a home game for Knockmore when it's in Ballina?
Well, I don't think any Knockmore man will ever call Ballina home, that's for sure.
That's what I was thinking.
And I don't think any Ballina man would like Knockmore person say it's their home. So no, I wouldn't go as far as to say that now.
It's a handier trek for you, though, it's got to be said, than the lads from Padraig Pearse's.
Less distance travelled, all right. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Well, listen, the very best of luck with that. I do want to talk to you, of course, about Mayo, because fully we have Mayo players on the show a lot. I'm not sure if you've been on too often, because it seems that everything you hear from around the Mayo dressing room is that you're someone who just likes to go about their business, keep the head down, and get the job done. And get the job done pretty well, I think, when you look at your record. 150 appearances for Mayo, more than 70 in the championship, over 50 in a row. It's been a heck of a career at intercounty level.
Yeah, I suppose I got in, to be honest, I got in with John O'Mahony in 09, and whether that was the right thing or the wrong thing, I think John brought me in really early. I could argue I probably shouldn't have been in at the time, but I suppose he's seen something in me at the time to bring me in at that stage.
But what do you think he saw?
What did he say? He knew I was a good footballer, I suppose, and probably seen potential in me. And I suppose I've been lucky, regardless of who is taking over. I've got an opportunity with every manager. So, yeah, I don't do an awful lot of media work, we'll say, but you know, I probably do like to do my own thing to a certain extent, yeah. But look, I'm very dedicated to my football. Anytime I put on that green and red jersey, or saffron and blue for that matter, you know, I always try to put in a big shift if I can.
Yeah, like you remember the times when Mayo weren't contending for All-Ireland finals, those first couple of years, and like there was probably that sliding doors moment that you were responsible for when you kicked that point against London over in Ruislip to send it to extra time. The decade that Mayo have had and the journey that Mayo have had probably may not have happened if that point hadn't gone over the bar.
Possibly, yeah. I know it's funny to think back on now. There was a few turning points in that game, but obviously I kicked the leveler at the time. But I remember, I think it was myself, Aidan, and Trevor Mortimer kind of came on within a few minutes of each other. And I remember Trevor kicked 2 points as well, and Aidan started dominating around the middle. So obviously it was a lot of players kicked into gear towards the end of it, I suppose. If I hadn't kicked, but if I didn't have to kick that score at the end, who knows where it would have been over the last 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if you've read Andy Moran's book.
No, I haven't read it yet. No, I've talked to him about it, all right, go.
He described you in it as a Swiss Army knife of a footballer, which I think is probably a fair reflection. You can kind of do everything.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, well, I guess it's availability is the best ability, as some might say. And listen, your ability to always be there, like, it's incredible that you don't seem to have suffered any serious injuries at any stage.
Yeah, I suppose I've been kind of lucky in that sense. Maybe it's possibly to do with the style of my game. Maybe I'm not the most robust footballer, I would say, in terms of the physicality side of things, but maybe that helps me. Maybe that helps with my longevity a small bit, but I can get into tackles if I need to as well, though.
Yeah, you're one of the few players, I think, who started in all 7 finals that Mayo have been in over the last decade. And one of the things that really stands out from Andy's book, and when you do get around to reading it, you'll realize that he spent more time talking about all of ye than he did actually talking about himself. But one of the things that you really take from it is that the bond that is there, the love that is there between the players who've been around over the last decade and I know there's no talk of retirement just yet, but when you look back at the last decade, despite the All-Ireland finals, is it one of fond memories, or is there one tinged with regret?
I think it's mainly fond memories, to be honest. Like, when obviously you want to win, like that's part of it. You do want to win, but at the end of the day, you can't win every day. That's part of the game. That's part of life. But I suppose what you will look back on is the guys you played with, the friendships, the camaraderie, the enjoyment of going to training and knocking stuffing out of each other for an hour and having to chat about it afterwards. There's a lot to be said for that as well. And I'll definitely look back on it with many fond memories, to be honest.
Yeah, so you are the old guy in the dressing room. There's no getting away from it, Kevin. Have you spoken to James Horan? Obviously, you can delay things slightly with things going so well with the club. Is there a plan? Are you going back in for this season?
I haven't really spoken to him much over the last couple of weeks. I haven't made any decisions yet, so I'm not going to announce anything just yet. No,
come on, but give us the exclusive.
No, look, as I said, I think I've said to other people that I'm kind of just focused at Knockmore at the minute, and just see where that takes us, and I'll see how the head is after that. Head and the body.
Like the big important scores have continued over the last decade from that day in Ruislip, even thinking the year after the goal against Cork, there were some huge points at the end of Division 1 games to stave off relegation. And then that point against Dublin last year when Diarmuid O'Connor performs his heroics to somehow keep it in, which was, I think, one of the moments of the GAA summer. Like it's still there. Do you feel, and I do think watching you play, it reminds me of John Giles talking about midfielders when they're playing soccer, that they get better the older. They should get better as they get older because you're learning more all the time. Watching you now, you're probably a very different player from 10 years ago, but it does seem you've learned a huge amount in terms of how you can impact the game still.
Yeah, well, I suppose the modern day footballer is a bit different than it was 10, 12 years ago, so I suppose I have adapted my game a small bit. In terms of, I've mainly played in the half-forward line as well, but I've had to change certain aspects. Even small things like tactical stuff where I need to be. I think maybe in my early career I was maybe sprinting back more to help defence out, but maybe sometimes there's merit in not going too far back and getting contact higher up. There's lots of these, as much tactical as anything else, so that's kind of comes with management and how the system comes as well, but I'd like to think I have improved, definitely skill wise and stuff like that, but yeah, sure, I suppose that's up for people to say.
Has that half forward role changed dramatically over the last 10 years? It feels as though almost the wing back and the half forward have switched roles, where the wing backs, it's all about getting forward and creating and adding to the attack, whereas for the half forwards, yes, it's good to add to the attack, but also you've got to track the opposition wing backs.
Well, definitely for the Mayo half forward line, there's a lot of tracking back to cover for our half back line, that's for sure. Yeah, but it is quite fluid in the middle eight, to be honest. Like, if you're around, it's literally called the middle eight. Like, you could end up, I have found myself on several games, I could be playing at number 10, but I could end up at left half back for 5 minutes. I could end up at number 6 for a short period of time. You could end up around the middle. It's a very fluid area of the pitch. And I suppose that's one way that the game has changed. 10 years ago, it was very much up and down your line, up and down that right-hand channel or left-hand channel or whatever. But I suppose that's where the game is different a bit. Moving out of space, people moving into space, creating gaps for each other,
Just looking back on last year and the defeat, and look, there's different ways, I guess, to lose All-Ireland finals and different reactions coming out of it. Some days you go and you perform your absolute best, and maybe Dublin are just that little bit better at the time. And I think after most All-Ireland finals, there was a feeling among Mayo supporters that the players had given the role and were due their full respect. It does seem, watching from the outside, that the reaction in Mayo was slightly different this time around. I've seen the comments from the county board chairman that there seemed to be a bit of an onslaught of criticism after the All-Ireland final. Did you get that sense as a player that supporters had reacted differently to the Tyrone defeat to previous disappointments?
Well, I know, like, I wouldn't be big with social media myself now. So the week after the All-Ireland, I suppose I wasn't really online much. So I didn't really see what was going on behind the scenes, but I was aware of it from people talking. There probably was a slightly different feeling, and I know from my own personal point of view, it was probably more to do with, like, as a team, we probably didn't perform as good as we know we could. And I suppose that was probably reflected in the people's minds, the fans' minds. They were probably feeling that way as well. So to a certain extent, maybe, yeah. But I know personally, we probably, as a team, obviously the result, you can do nothing about the result, but I suppose one thing we'll definitely have to look back on is, our performance probably wasn't up to scratch on the day,
Does it make the disappointment linger longer than compared to a 16 or 17, which in a way were different, where you did perform to your absolute maximum? There was more of a heartbreaking element to it. Does that disappointment dissipate quicker than the sense of, actually, we just didn't deliver on the day this time?
It's hard to say. I suppose it was slightly different maybe this year for me anyways, because we're getting back in with the club straight away. Maybe this year I felt like I didn't dwell on it as much, actually. Maybe if there was no games coming after the All-Ireland, like if there was no club campaign, maybe I would have lingered on it a bit longer, possibly. But look, you can't linger too much over defeats. It's part of the game. You're going to lose some games, so you just kind of have to get back on the horse and keep going.
Yeah, Kevin, it's been great to talk to you. Just before I let you go, I know the first text message we're going to get after this interview is from your biggest celebrities fan. I don't know if you know this. You're Kevin Kilbane's favourite player. Has he accosted you on a drunken night out at any stage to tell you this?
No, I've seen him. He's mentioned me in a tweet once or twice. No, but that's about the height of it. I think it's just because he have the same name.
Possibly. No, it's true love. It is true love. After every single Mayo match, it's my boy Kev, my boy Kev. That's how he's acting around these things.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Listen, hopefully he'll get back, and hopefully we get back to see you again next summer for Mayo. But first, listen, to matters at hand. Very best of luck on Sunday against Padraig Pearse's in that AIB GAA Connacht Senior Football Championship final.
All right. Thanks a million, Nathan. Cheers.